All right. Well, I was supposed to be out hiking today on my day off. I am running out of time. So we are going to drive around Mount Laguna to a few spots that I know and catch a sunset, hopefully a good one. Interesting thing about today is sort of everything towards the desert, there's like no sky. And then everything towards west, basically, or 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐞 area, there's really, really cool clouds back there. And so the trick is going to be to find a spot where maybe we can get some of that view at a slightly higher elevation. Might as well take some shots here though. Goddamn gorgeous out here. All right, let's keep looking. Man, I'm on a road I've never actually been on before, and it's beautiful, it's narrow, and hi bud. I mean, good God, just beautiful. Just gotta find a good spot, and this is the the bad thing about not being able to hike and head up the mountain is now we gotta try and find a good spot for sunset. And there is a decent chance that I just may not, and this might be a total fail. So, probably gonna shoot some photos here. The trees and the road looks beautiful, but let's keep looking. All right, we I don't know if we're on a trail, just a dirt, whatever this is. It seems like it leads up to a little tiny point up here, so we're gonna give this a try. All right, we found our spot. I have some great views and I know how I want to photograph this. So we're gonna wait just a little bit longer for the sunset colors to really start kicking in. I have the telephoto lens on, and we're not at a peak or anything, but it's just should be a good spot. All right, so I did not come properly prepared for this weather. It is significantly colder than I thought it would be. I do have a light jacket, but it's not gonna cut it. And it's gonna be a nice sunset, but I've also never been on this road. I'm completely off trail, and it's just me. So I took some nice photos. I got what I needed, I think. And we're gonna cut now to essentially editing the best photo I think that I had from this trip and how I edit it. So we'll go through that. First, whew, we gotta get to the car. Man, it is cold. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I look forward to really evolving this type of video in 2021. So I will still be covering a lot of hikes around San Diego, but as summertime rolls around, I'm probably gonna transition more to just sunrise or sunset shooting, making some vlogs out of that. We'll talk about location, composition, And just like I will do right now, we're gonna talk about final edits to a landscape photo. Very quickly, this is not a raw to final edit video. This is mostly the final touches that I did to this image. I will go over a bunch of different things, but I'm not gonna start out with the raw file. I'll just show it for comparison. All right, we're taking a look at this image today. This is actually from the video you just saw. I had to drive out a little bit further out. Very narrow road. I looked out and I saw this, played around with the composition for a little bit, and this was the image that I loved. This is the image that I'm deciding to show for you guys. Okay, so let's look at the raw file real quick. So you can see here, I had to underexpose a little bit to make sure that the sky was still there. That's a big challenge with landscape photography. All right, let's take a look at our settings. So this was at 1/100th of a second at f4.5 ISO 400 with the 55mm lens. So what could we have done differently? You know, I chose the ISO for a reason. I didn't want to go below f4.5. I probably could have, but then as you guys know, your depth of field gets very shallow. The leaves at the bottom were already pretty blurry, and I felt like it's gonna be a little too much. ISO 400 digitally still looks amazing. Nothing to really complain about. And I believe I had my tripod with me, so I felt comfortable shooting at 1/100th of a second, where the wind wasn't too crazy this day, so we didn't get any crazy blurred out leaves. All right, so let's talk about everything to do with the edits of this photo. So first thing to play around with is the white balance. As you can tell, I chose something there. Still had some blues in those shadows, but was still able to bring out those reds and yellows in the sky. Exposure-wise, you can see I brought it up just a little bit, though I can show you on the tone curve. Here we always generally bring the highlights down to bring back some of that sky. We brightened the overall lights of the image a little bit more, brought down the darks, brought down the shadows a little bit. Now, this photo does look a little bit dark, but that's because when I went to go print it, I know that it'll be a little bit lighter than what I expected. So if I really needed to, I could play around with the shadows, bring it up a little bit more. Probably something there looks kind of nice, but for now, I'll just leave it as is. Now, the undertones of the photo, we go down to calibration. We bring down the shadows a little bit green, just to give it a little bit more of that green forest feeling to it. And then the blue primary, we're gonna bring that down just a little bit to make sure that the blues look a little bit less navy blue and a little bit more sky blue. Those are sort of the personal preferences that I have in a lot of my photos. Sharpening, as a reminder, you can click the option tool here and then see exactly the mask or what you wanna sharpen. If my computer was faster, we could do this real time. There we go. So you bring it up to whatever level you feel comfortable. You let go and then you up the sharpening amount. I believe it's auto set to 40. I brought it up to 45 in this case. Based on photography, landscape standards, I think anything above 60 would be a little too much. So I'm generally pretty comfortable leaving it at about 55. Didn't mess with the split toning for this. I will give you guys a tip here with the luminance and saturation, which I tend to focus on a lot with my photos. And the key thing with these is to be subtle, right? You see a lot of images, especially on Instagram, where people drag something just way too far up. It just looks unreal. So in this case, the sky was already red, it was already yellow, and all we're doing is only in that piece of the photo, so the sky, we're gonna bring that saturation up just a little bit to really pop that color out. So that's what we did here with the saturation, red, orange, yellow, green, and then I'll show you guys, right? If I went too far with this, I would go over here and I would just drag up the red and it would look insane. It would look absolutely, it's way too orange, way too fake. This is not what it really looks like. So again, all we did was just bring those up just a slightly little bit to give it back some of that color. And then with the luminance is we're making those colors a little bit darker. So if I brought the orange back up, you'll notice the sky will start to get a little bit overexposed again, just like that. So I'm bringing those oranges down a little bit, again, to bring down some of that color. My style personally is I don't like to have my sky overexposed. I know a lot of people do that, to each their own. But for me, I'm always looking for that balance of how much do I underexpose to still have clarity in the shadows, but be able to really see that sky and not just have it be white and blown out. All right, let's finish up with different masking tools here. So first thing I always say, align your horizon. You can see here, that's what I've done. So I've played around with this a little bit, make sure that it looks straight. Clean up here, as you can see, there was a whole bunch on the bottom left, right hand side. These trees were just popping up out of nowhere and I felt like they were really taken away from the image. When you have a wide angle like this, you can get away with being a little bit more messy with some of these cleanups. So if I zoom into this, it looks good. nothing really stands out to me. But if we go, for example, back to the way we had it, show you guys all these different, so you can see all these different trees that were just sort of sticking out. They were drawing the attention away from the valley, which is where I want people to look. You look to the valley and then you look to the sky, right? That's the awesome thing of having the image come together like this. Those trees were just a distraction. So I was able to very easily get rid of them with the, I always forget the name, the spot removal tool, which you also do that for dust spots in the sky. And it looks a little bit cleaner. I like it. We're good to go. I did not use the radial filter, but I did use the graduated filter. And in this case, again, want to be very, very light with it. You can see here I have two. The first one here is just up the sky. The one thing I've done is drag that exposure from the sky a little bit down. Again, same thing to get back some of that color, some of that detail, and then drag the dehaze up tool slightly a little bit. I urge you guys the same thing with the dehaze tool. Be gentle with it. If we do too much, it looks horrific. And this is one of those things that you see on Instagram a lot with people dragging up like the contrast way too far up. Let's see if we can show you guys a quick example here. So if I drag that up to 100, I mean, this looks like out of a cartoon, right? Or like a comic book. It just, ugh. So we did that here. Again, the line is not noticeable where we drew this, which is the goal. And bring down the exposure a little bit. So the bottom half of the image, I did feel was a little too dark. So I brought up the line here a lot so that the feather was much wider. And then we brought up the exposure and the highlights, or the shadows, I'm sorry, just a tiny, tiny little bit. Again, to bring back some of that detail from the valley, because I did underexpose it a little bit raw, as you guys saw. And then the last thing is the brush tool. And in this case, the brush tool was used to brighten up just ever so slightly the valley. So you can see here, if I click on this, I did bring up the exposure and I used a high feather, a lower flow, so that it's not as sharp. We drew just a little line here across the valley. I'll probably clean this up after this because it doesn't look too good right now, but the general gist is we just brighten that up slightly a little bit, again, because that's where we're drawing the eye of the viewer. And I'll end it with this. The reason why I like this image so much is because it's very clear where do you look. A lot of the times when I'm shooting landscapes, as many people who like to shoot landscapes, you shoot this pretty picture, then you get home and you're like, oh man, there's a lot going on here. Where am I looking? There's no question here. I immediately pull up this photo and my eye directly draws straight into the valley and then into the sky. That's what I like about it, having those blurry leaves at the front. Again, it's just my style, you don't have to, but it provides a little bit of foreground depth of focus so that it makes it feel like, man, that is very far away, which it is, by having sort of that out of focus stuff near you. More personal preference on that. Drop any questions you may have in a comment down below. Happy to answer any questions. I'm definitely not a professional, but I've been doing this for quite some time, so I do have some tips and advice for people who are learning and trying to improve their editing skills. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at instagram.com/beautyiswild with 2 eyes, the YouTube channel at youtube.com/beautyiswild with 2 eyes, and the website at www.beautyiswild.com with 2 eyes. Thanks, and I will see you guys soon.